Aloha and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed my talk with Governor Ige as much as I did. Building on the conversation about corruption and the recent corruption scandal, I have today here with me the Honorable Daniel Foley, retired Associate Hawaii Intermediate Court of Appeals judge. Judge Foley has been tasked by the House of Representatives, the Hawaii House of Representatives, to lead a special committee to look into campaign ethics, lobbying, and other rules and laws to address the recent corruption scandal that is rocking our community. I want to jump right in with some questions for Judge Foley. Judge Foley, respected member of the judiciary, lawyer of high esteem. You've been in public service for a long time. What were your initial thoughts as we've learned about the recent corruption scandals rocking all levels of government here locally, both with the Kealoha scandal, the corruption at counties, and with the legislature?
I think, like many people, I was shocked. What happened with the chief of police, his wife, Catherine Kealoha, the prosecutor's office, the building and permits department, and then in particular the two bribery cases in the House and the Senate. I knew Kalani English. I never saw that one coming. I've been dealing with the legislature and state government since I was a ACLU lawyer in 1984. And one of my first cases was corruption in the judiciary and the legislature. You may remember Tom Fatboy Okuda, ticket fixing, food, fundraisers the judiciary was performing for the legislature to have their bills treated properly. And I represented the whistleblower in that case. But good things came out of it. They had a blue ribbon commission, they had reform, and they moved the sheriff's department, where the corruption was, out of the judiciary. And then I wrote the Whistleblower Act with Fred Hemmings and Ian Lynn. So even though that was bad, something good came from it. I represented the Safe Sandy Beach Coalition when there was corruption at Bishop Estate, and this concerned Bishop Estate land. And they had sort of a stranglehold on the city council and the state legislature. But ultimately, we won that case, and the Bishop Estate was reformed. So sometimes you can change poison into medicine. You take a very unfortunate, outrageous incident and reform the system. And I think that's what House Resolution 9 charges my commission to do. So I'm entering it with a very positive attitude with a wonderful group.
Can I pause there for a minute? Because I think what you say is really important, that you can turn something bad into something good, and that what it is democracy is a work in progress. We have to always hold each other accountable, and community groups in those instances you talked about did that. And so that's what in some ways that this committee is going to be doing. When you got the call from Speaker Psyche in the House, what was your thoughts about this Blue Ribbon Committee?
Well, I know Speaker Psyche. He's my former law school student, my civil rights litigation class. And I collaborated with him and Tom Kaufman on the Eddie Nakamura biography. And just a couple of years ago, he asked me to be on a task force he put together to improve the judicial selection process, to make it more open, to make it more accountable. And so when he called me up and asked me to do this and told me what he had in mind in the group I'd be working with, as a private citizen, how can you say no? I accepted special master for the state Supreme Court on the prison system for COVID, and recently for the federal court for COVID. When I see people out there on the front lines working to protect the public health, when someone asks you to do something, how can you say no? So whether it's COVID or whether it's corruption, it's just, I'm not going to turn my back and walk away.
I so appreciate that, because it speaks to our citizen democracy. So can you tell me a little bit about the task of the committee, the members? You have a stellar committee of 7 people, and what your timeline might be.
Okay, the House resolution recognizes there's a lack of trust in government, and government has to do better. And so it put together this commission to look at specifically the ethics code, campaign spending laws, the lobbying laws, and other areas, and put together people with expertise. Robert Harris, who's the vice chair from the Ethics Commission, Kristen.
I think he's executive director now. Robert Harris is executive director, yes.
And he's vice chair of our commission.
Oh, okay.
And Kristen Izumi Naito of the Campaign Spending Commission, Sandy Ma of Common Cause Hawaii, Janet Mason of League of Women Voters, a wonderful group, former U.S. Attorney and Deputy Prosecutor Flo Nakakuni, and Barbara Maramoto, a very respected former Republican member of the House. So these people bring tremendous amount of experience on the subjects of House resolution. Now the problem we have is that our interim report is due March 31. And our first meeting was February 22nd. So we figured, how can we give the legislature something this early? Our second report is due December 1, so we have more than enough time. So what we decided to do was, well, let's look at what these four groups have been doing. What bills have they been tracking over the last couple of years, testifying on, bills they support, bills they oppose, bills that the legislature may have an opportunity, although it's late in the game and tight deadlines, to take a look at. And then other areas and other bills. To give you an example, like one bill that's going through is Senate Bill 555 on accepting campaign contributions during a session. I think it's moved over to the House or moving to the House. So that's a bill that's moving. Some of these groups have opinions on, so why not take a look at that one? There's another area like term limits. That requires a constitutional amendment. That may not be for this session, but we could kick it down for our final report due December 1. Those are kind of our deadlines. Now, one of the areas is how do we get more input from the public, various community groups, other groups with expertise, individuals. It's really difficult to do it before March 31. We're meeting weekly, and we're talking on the phone, and we're emailing. We're really trying to deliver something meaningful to the legislature. But after our March 31 report, we'll make that public, and then we'll reach out to the public to get their general input, reach out to the media that covers the legislature. What do you think? And start spending those months after your session in coming up with something more substantive.
Well, what I wanted to share with you is that at a recent neighborhood board meeting, the McCully Neighborhood Board, this issue came up. So I think that when you put out the call, there are going to be people who want to speak up. And I think that the timing of the process is good because we want you, I believe, and I think you would want to as well, take the time to really kind of hear from the community. So I appreciate that. Did you want to comment on any of your, you also have, I think, former Representative Barbara Maramoto on the committee. Did you want to comment any more on some of the other things that you might be looking at longer term?
You know, it's disclosure, transparency, limits on campaign contributions, but there's some big issues that are problematical. We have Citizens United, decided by the U.S. Supreme Court, that allows these political action committees, otherwise known as PACs, to spend unlimited funds as long as there's no coordination with a campaign. And we, you know, how do you deal with that? When I was a civil rights lawyer, the city council in Honolulu passed an ordinance prohibiting lobbyists from making campaign contributions. Sounded great, right? But they defined lobbyist as anyone who receives a discretionary permit, and they described candidate as anyone who had filed for office. So basically, incumbents don't file until the last minute so they could get the contributions. People challenging incumbents couldn't, so I challenged that in court. And I had it overturned by Judge Kevin Chang because state law preempted the county from doing that. But at that time, I also had the opportunity to look at some real First Amendment issues, speech and association. So not everything you want to do is easy. You just can't cap expenditures across the board. So how to do that?
One of the things the resolution also calls for is to look to best practices in other states.
Absolutely.
The Brennan Center of New York that does a lot of good work on good government. So you'll also be doing that?
Absolutely. And even in terms of your rules, the House rules, I don't know if the Senate wants us looking at their rules, but we may. Looking at, you know, other state legislatures, what do they do? Do they have any particular rule that's open, transparent, and workable? When I chaired the task force for appellate review, changing the whole appellate system, that's exactly what we did. We looked at every state system. How does it operate? Best practices. We've done that with judicial selection. The way we do that, looked at every other state best practices. So that's exactly, and people like Campaign Spending Commission, Ethics Commission, League of Women Voters, Common Cause, have a lot of experience doing this, access to that, and they'll have valuable input.
So we're about rounding up on our time here. Is there any last takeaway message that you'd like to share with the public about the work of your committee?
Absolutely, and a little broader. There's a lot of cynicism about the whole legislative process, about state government, about county government. And, you know, I've been fighting big battles all my life as a civil rights lawyer. When I filed the case same-sex marriage, 91, everybody said, ridiculous, no way, public against it. Now all 50 states have marriage equality, 30 countries. So a lot of people, you know, don't be despondent, don't give up. Now's a perfect opportunity under this resolution with this commission to become involved. We want you to become involved. We'll be reaching out to you. Be positive, be optimistic. Now's the time for change, and I think we can do it.
Thank you so much, Judge Foley. I'm looking forward to your report in March as well as in December.